Hey guys, it's Tealus here. I'm back inside Skyhole, ready to bring you another video looking at a warrior class specialization. It's been actually quite a long time since I've been here in Skyhold. Fury Warrior, I think, was like the second video that I ever did, so it's been quite a while. I was a little concerned about arms changing too much, but for the most part, it seems like not too much has happened, and not much will happen in the future, so it's in a safe place to kind of go through and take a look at things. And so that's what this video will be about. We'll be looking at Arms Warrior. We'll be looking at their removed, changed, and new abilities coming in World of Warcraft Legion. And then we'll also be looking at their artifact weapon, which is one of the coolest looking artifact weapons, just like the base version in the game. That's a really awesome looking weapon right there. So this is the ARMS video part 1 of 2 videos. In the second video we'll be looking at the PvE and PvP talents. Prot Warriors, I think, along with pretty much all all tanking classes, are going to end up coming at the very end of the video. I actually considered doing I actually really considered doing Brewmaster Monks just recently, and then just the talk of how brokenly overpowered they were, at least on the PvP side of things, made me kind of decide not to. So I do think all the tanking classes are in for some type of nerf and some type of major changes possibly, so I'm kind of afraid to do any of the tanking classes. With that being said, as I said, in this video we will look over the abilities coming for an Arms Warrior and the artifact weapon, and then in the next video we'll be looking at the PvP abilities as well as, sorry, the PvP abilities, the PvP talent tree and the PvE talent tree, both talent trees together. So, let's go ahead and get straight into it. I will say that Arms falls into the category of, it's the 1/3 of specs that changed very little in World of Warcraft Legion, and definitely is near the top in terms of specs that has very, very little changed. Very few classes are as little changed as this: Destruction Warlocks, Assassination Rogues. You maybe could put Windwalker Monks in that as well. I mean, in my opinion, when I was starting to go through the write-up for this, I'm like, man, really nothing has changed with this class. It really kind of feels mostly the same. And you're going to see that as we go through the abilities, and you see, you know, what has been removed, what has been changed, and what is brand new. And it shouldn't surprise you. The playstyle, for the most part, I believe, will still be pretty close to how Arms is on live. So, with that, let's go ahead and look at the removed abilities. First, Battle Shout has been removed. Pretty much anything that is just like a raid-wide buff, which is what I believe Battle Shout have become by this point, has been removed from the game. So realistically, there's no reason for it to be in the game anymore. Mark of the Wild, Arcane Brilliance, all of those abilities have been removed from the game. So Battle Shout got the same treatment. It's just been tossed by the wayside. Battle Stance and Defensive Stance have both been removed. Ironically enough, I thought this was moved from the game completely, but it actually does come back as a talent for Arms only. So if you actually did like going back and forth between defensive and battle stance, you can do so through a talent. However, Blizzard really kind of wanted to make switching between like different stances, so to say, kind of exclusive to druids. Druids are the shapeshifters. That's what they're all about. And so shifting between a different set of stats, being the defensive tanky type or switching to a more offensive melee type, is something that's always been a part of a druid. So they kind of wanted to keep that with druids. And so stances across the board have been removed. Chakras, presences, the stances, both in warriors and in your monks, they've all just been removed. And so, yes, you can still get them as a talent, and we'll get to that in the next video, but for the most part, it's been removed. Commanding Shout, the ability as you know it, has been removed. The name will still be here, which we'll get to in the changed abilities, but Commanding Shout has been removed. Recklessness has been removed. I really have no explanation as to why this has been removed. I do believe you get a brand new ability in its place in terms of just a damage increase, but it has been removed. Rend is gone. It is now a talent in the talent tree, which is weird because you know, last expansion everyone was so excited about Rend being back. Like it was felt good to have Ren being back, and then they just take it back out again. I'm being kind of critical of this because, uh, as with all of the classes who have changed very little, Feral Druids, Windwalker Monks, you name it, Assassination Rogues, their rotations and everything seem really boring. Uh, Arms Warrior is one of the dullest, I'm sorry to say, of them all. I haven't played my Warrior really truly since Cataclysm, um, but I was using my Warrior as a warm-up to kind of compare the two. That's how I do the write-up, is I look at my live version and I compare it to the beta version and kind of go through, what I think needs to be what the changes are, figure out what the changes are, and go through and figure them out. And I feel like Warrior is even less complex than it is on live. That's kind of my assessment right now. I just feel like you get your major cooldowns out of the way, and then you just spam one ability over and over again. And when you need some rage, there's a quick, simple fix for that. We'll get into that as we get through the abilities, but I'm kind of disappointed to what the rotations are. Maybe putting in some talents with actual active abilities will make it more interesting, but for the moment, I'm really kind of unimpressed with basically all the classes that have seen little to no changes to their class spec. Uh, Basically, they're really bland and boring. So I hope, maybe there's some changes are on the way, but it is really late in beta process, so I'm thinking things are probably going to ship. Do not worry, if you're one that really only cares about damage, they're going to balance the numbers out. And you'll still do plenty of damage as an arms warrior. But if you're one that enjoys the intellectual challenge of having something complex, don't expect it from arms warrior, in my opinion. Shield barrier has been removed. That kind of goes along with defensive stance being gone. That was a defensive stance only ability, and so it's just been removed from the game. In fact, to my knowledge, it's not even available for protection warriors. Let me just double check here. They have shield block, shield wall, but no shield barrier. So it's been removed. Spell reflection is gone. It is actually a PvP talent, so in the next video you'll be able to see where it actually is, but it is no longer baseline. Sweeping Strikes is also gone. That's actually been a part of Arms Warrior for a very long time, being back in the old talent trees. It does come back as a talent, but in terms of regular abilities, it is gone. A Thunderclap has been removed. It is now a prot-only ability. Really not much of a loss there. You shouldn't be using, I think, Thunderclap too much as an Arms Warrior anyways. But that has been removed. It is protection only. Inspiring Presence has been removed. A lot of the passive buffs have just been taken out across the board. I believe Inspiring Presence was the one that was just like a flat buff to several stats all at once, like by 3%. And Blizzard has gotten rid of all of those. Anything that was just it's the same thing with Mark of Wild and Arcane Brilliance and Battle Shout. It's just anything with just a base increase to stats. They've removed from the game. So really, you as an arms warrior are not really losing much there. Weapon Mastery has been removed as well. Once again, the same reasoning for that. Any flat damage buff or anything like that has just been taken out of the game. And then also Weapons Mastery has been removed. So you're going to get a new Mastery out of this, which is kind of cool. It changes things up a little bit. It changes the importance of certain abilities, but the thing is that the new Mastery that's coming in basically takes what I am under the impression as the most important ability to an arms warrior and just makes it even more important. So in my opinion, it really doesn't do much to change the specs, so that's why I still feel it's kind of dry and still the same. But Weapons Mastery was pretty boring anyways. It was just flat damage buffs, and it's just really not that interesting. So the new one's more interesting, but in terms of changing playstyle, I don't really think it's going to change it that much. So with that, let's go ahead and go into changed abilities. That was all of the removed abilities for a Arms Warrior in World of Warcraft Legion. Changed abilities, first is going to be Berserker Rage. Berserker Rage is at its cooldown increased from 30 seconds to 1 minute. So, a 1 minute cooldown on Berserker Rage, forgotten what that is. That's basically the immunity to Fear, Sap, and Incapacitate effects. For 6 seconds, it's now a 1 minute cooldown. Colossus Smash has been changed drastically. it still functions. I mean, this is kind of the story of Arms Warrior. It still functions somewhat the same way, but there's a lot of changes to it. Basically, you would use, like if I were to like give a basic rundown of Colossus Smash, it's an ability that you use so that you can do more damage with the other abilities. That really has not changed. It's just different how they use it now. So Colossus Smash, and I'm going to start showing you a lot of warrior abilities, because warrior abilities have actually, they've done a lot of work on melee animations, changing them, making them different. So I'm going to show them off to you as I start to do this. First you're going to see charge here. You're going to see I kind of like shove the target with my arm here. It's really cool. I like run up here and just like shove them to the right here with my arm. That's the new charge. And you'll hear the new sound effects of the sword hitting and etc. And it just sounds really cool. Now, the new Colossus Smash is now 45-second cooldown. So its cooldown's been increased from 20 seconds to 45 seconds. It no longer costs any rage, so its rage cost has been removed. It no longer bypasses the armor of the targets. So that was a 6-second bypassing of the armor. However, instead, it increases the damage you deal to them by 45% for 8 seconds. So there's some changes there. The biggest change is going to be the cooldown. But for the most part, what Colossus Smash does is allow you to do more damage to the target, which is what it did before. So, I mean, we'll use it right here. As you can see right there, that is the new Colossus Smash. Wonderful sound effects and everything. Makes it sound great. I love it. Die by the Sword has had some changes. Its cooldown has been increased from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. However, its damage reduction has been increased from 20% to 35%. So, overall, I think it's going to end up being the same. You're not going to be able to use it as much, but you're going to get more protections out of it. Proportionally, I do believe this ends up being a buff. You get a 35% reduction every 3 minutes as opposed to a 20% reduction every 2 minutes. If it was an exact equal exchange, it'd be 30% for 3 minutes. But, or actually, it'd probably be more along the lines of the duration. However, the duration is the same as it is on live, so no change there. Heroic Leap has been changed. Its range is increased by 15 yards from 25 to 40, and this is kind of important because there's a lot of classes that now have some semi-mid yard range, like 20 yard range and so forth, to harass you with. There are some melee classes like Hunters that have 40 yard ranges on several of their abilities, which will annoy the crap out of you. I know they will. So that's something to take note of. Let me go ahead and show you something really cool with Heroic Leap. Do know that its cooldown has been increased by 15 seconds from 30 to 45 seconds, so it's now a 45-second cooldown as opposed to 30, so that's a big bummer. But the cool thing that I want to show you is that they've done this new targeting reticle now, to where the targeting reticle will now only go as far as max distance. No matter how far I move the mouse to the top of the screen, it will only go as far as 40 yards. So you'll never have that red area to show up, like, oh, you can't jump here, unless you're trying to jump somewhere that you really can't. You'll never have that red area show up. Instead, it'll just go to max distance, and that'll be as far as you can go. So I'll go ahead and use it over here. You can see, and there you go. So, in review, Heroic Leap, range increased by 15 yards from 25 to 40, which is a huge deal, and then its cooldown has been increased by 15 seconds from 30 to 45 seconds, so that is a nerf. Buff and a nerf in the same way. Honestly, I think the range is more important considering the range of some classes these days. I mean, marksmanship hunters have some absurd range, and closing the gap is going to be essential if you ever want to be able to compete with them. Rallying Cry has been renamed to Commanding Shout. So, in all actuality, Rallying Cry has been removed from the game. Commanding Shout has taken on the ability Rallying Cry, and that is the change there. So I guess they felt that Commanding Shout was more warrior-like. It's been with the warriors longer, I believe, as well. So they just renamed it Commanding Shout. Victory Rush now heals for 30% of health instead of 15. I don't believe I can show you this, though, because I do not, the target is not low enough. But it does heal for 30% now instead of 15, so that's a great change. Whirlwind now costs 25 rage, up from 20. It actually hits harder, too. So if you were to use it for some reason, it wouldn't be necessarily a huge DPS loss. So let's go ahead and use Whirlwind so you can see the wonderful new sound effects and visual effects. I mean, it looks amazing. So props to Blizzard with what they did on the animations there. And then lastly, Seasoned Soldier has had its damage increase reduced from 15% to 10%. This is a passive damage increase. I'm surprised they didn't just take this out of the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if sometime before the launch that they decide to take it out and then distribute its damage across all abilities. Because I don't get why they did not take this ability out of the game, but they took out all the other abilities that were just like passive damage increases. So this one really confuses me, but it's just the way, it's Blizzard. It's how Blizzard operates, so that's the way things are done. So let me go show you real quick abilities, just so you can see what they're how they look now. There's Hamstring. Some have changed, some have not. But I'm going to show you them all just so you can kind of see. Here's Heroic Throw. I believe that's still pretty close to the same. Here's your Mortal Strike. Very nice. Still costs 20 rage. You have Slam, which we will get to in a second because it's now baseline. But for the most part, those are your abilities that you have baseline. I just wanted to show what their new visual effects and their sound effects are in game. I think my favorite has to be Charge's new visual effect of me shoving my shoulder into the target. So with that, let's look at the new abilities. First, we have Battle Cry. It is Let Loose a Battle Cry, granting 100% increased critical strike chance for 5 seconds. Fury has this as well. It's a 1-minute cooldown. So you can see right here, right there, and then that shows up, so it's pretty cool. I can't remember what that icon was used for. It was used like Gladiator stance or something. I can't quite remember what that icon was used for, but it is now being used for Battle Cry. Cleave has now been added for Arms Warriors. It was not available to Arms Warriors before, and now it is. So you now have Cleave there. You can see the nice spell visual on that. So definitely nice to have this back in the game for a Arms Warrior. Slam is back. However, it just does straight damage, okay? So slams an opponent dealing 56,000 physical damage. 15 rage. Costs 5 more rage. There's no longer any damage increase if you have like 2 stacks or you do it consecutively or anything like that. It's just, here's the damage. That's it. That's all it is. Very simple. Which leads us to our final changed ability for an Arms Warrior. It's going to be your new mastery. Or new ability, sorry, not changed ability. Colossal Might. Increases the damage of Colossal Smash by 30% and causes it to increase the damage you deal to a target by an additional 30%. So, as I mentioned earlier, basically, the mastery now just takes an ability that the spec already kind of rotated around, having Colossus Smash up, and instead just buffed it even more, so that now it really is important through your mastery. Everything revolves around Colossus Smash. To be honest, this I think would be irritating in PvP. In PvE, this is not much of a big deal because you're normally on one target, but 45-second cooldown, and if you're like hot switching targets in PvP, I think this may kind of finally spell the death of Arms in PvP and push it to Fury. Fury will finally be, without question, I should say, without question, Fury would be the #1 choice in PvP. Fury does not have Hamstring, but it has Piercing Howl, and Piercing Howl costs the same amount of rage as Hamstring, and it has an actual range on it. Piercing Howl has like a 10-yard range or something like that. 15-yard range on it. So, like, I don't know what they're doing with Arms. Let me just show you what I've figured out to be the rotation here. You basically charge in, your Mortal Strike is priority every time, and then you're slamming. You're slamming. And you're slamming. And it takes forever to ever reduce your rage. You have so much rage. I'm not even kidding. You have an enormous amount of rage. And when you start to run out of rage, that's when you basically just go out of range a little bit, charge in, get your rage back up, and it's good enough for quite a while. So rage management, I think, may well come into play in the future. They may patch it in and make some of the stuff cost more rage. I'm not quite sure. The only time you ever experience downtime is if you finally are able to get it all the way down to 0. I mean, I will try and use, I'm going to use Whirlwind to get it down. It's the only way I can get my Rage down to the bottom. And once I finally get it down there and use slams and mortal strikes as I should, then you'll start running into issues with rage a little bit. But even if you're looking at my rage bar, you can see I just keep getting chunks back at a time. It's ridiculous. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see some changes to rage for a Arms Warrior to kind of bring it to make it actually more challenging. But right now it seems like you run in, you use Colossus Smash, you use Mortal Strike, and then you slam, 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 and then you use Mortal Strike when it's up. And it's just like, it's a priority system, but the priority system only consists of like 4 buttons, which is really disappointing. So, that will be, that priority system will become more complex, possibly, depending on which talent you take. If you've noticed, I actually have Overpower as a talent. There's also Rend as a talent as well, so that things could change there. But, you know, maybe they're not the best options damage-wise, and you could end up still having, you know, just basic stuff slamming all the time, which would be kind of disappointing. So we'll see how things work out with Arms Warriors, but for right now, very much like all the other specs that got very few to little changes in the game, Arms Warrior is looking very bland and simple to operate in World of Warcraft Legion. So with that, let's go ahead and look at the artifact weapon. The artifact weapon is known as Stromkar the Warbreaker. Sounds like an epic name, right? I really do like it. Let's go ahead and look at the first ability you have here, which is where you'll start. It's Warbreaker. Stomp into the ground, causing a ring of corrupted spikes to erupt upwards, dealing 86,000 shadow damage, and applying the Colossus Smash effect to all nearby enemies. So it applies it to everyone. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and use it right here. There you go, right there. You see the Colossus Smash, and now I have Colossus Smash on all enemies. Colossus Smash lasts for 8 seconds, and then from there, you know, you deal your damage normally. So that's a really cool spell visual. Small area of effect. It'll give you a nice damage boost when you have like a bunch of AoE packed up, but in a PvE situation, and probably in a PvP situation as well, I do not see this getting being too popular. I mean, it's an ability you're going to use, but it's not as exciting as, say, some other abilities out there that are a part of artifact weapon trees. So with that, let's go ahead and go through the entire artifact weapon tree. I'm going to start in the northwest and then work my way all the way down to the southeast. There are 3 epic portraits. These are generally the ones you want to get. Those are the best ones. You do have to start here in the middle with Warbreaker, and the first one you'll get is going to be this first talent, and then you'll work your way like a talent tree all the way throughout the tree, whichever direction you choose to go. So with that being said, let's start up here. We have Shattered Defenses. After using Colossus Smash, your next Mortal Strike or Execute gains a 30% increased critical strike chance and deals 30% additional damage. So this is really, once again, tying into more Colossus Strike being really important. As you can see, I have a Shattered Defenses buff here in the top right. And it's just very simple, you know? It's like, it's just... It basically like tells you what to do. It's just very simple. Here we have Death Blow, increases the critical strike chance of execute by 15%. That is 3 ranks, so that's going to be 5% per rank. We have Exploit the Weakness. Tactician's chance to trigger is increased as if you spent 30% more rage. Tactician's chance to trigger is increased as if you spent 30% more rage. Explaining that one there, that one's really difficult. So here's Tactician. You have a 0.65% chance per rage spent to reset the cooldown on Colossus Smash and Mortal Strike. I do believe this is a brand new ability. I apologize that I missed this before. So this is one ability that is really important to how things are going to function with Colossus Smash, because Colossus Smash with a really long cooldown is pretty absurd. Tactician is able to mitigate that, but 0.65% chance per rage spent to reset the remaining cooldown. So just to give you an idea, let's see, I use Slam, 15 rage, okay? 0.65% chance per rage. That means that I basically have a, gosh, trying to do it at the top of my head. That means I have like a 9% chance, somewhere in that range, a 9% chance every time I use Slam for my Colossus Smash to reset. Hopefully that gives you an idea of where it is. For something like Whirlwind, it would end up being like a, sorry, trying to do this at the top of my head is pretty difficult. 12.5, more than that, it'd be like a 13-14% chance per hit to be able to pull it off. So that kind of gives you an idea. Now this Tactician's chance to trigger is increased as if you spent 30% more rage. So basically 30% more rage on a Whirlwind is going to be around 7-8 rage. So we're looking more around a 15-16% chance for Tactician to proc and give me my Colossus Smash back. So Tactician is very important. I apologize that I did not get to that in the new abilities. It slipped through at the very end, and I did not put that on my sheet of new abilities that are coming to Arms Warriors in World of Warcraft Legion. So, yes, crucial, Tactician, pairing with Mastery, Colossus Might, pairing with the brand new changes to Colossus Smash with the really long cooldown. With that being said, we have defensive measures, 1 rank. While Die by the Sword is active, damage taken is reduced by an additional 5%. We have Will of the First King. Whirlwind critical strikes generate 2 rage. So every time you get a critical strike with Whirlwind, you get 2 rage. Let me see if... I don't think I can demonstrate that very well, because 2 rage is not something that shows up very well. But I did get some rage back right there with that. The first ability that you will get when you first get your artifact weapon is going to be Thoradin's Might. Increases the damage dealt by Mortal Strike by 15%. 1 rank, so straight flat 15%. Over here we have 1 against many. Cleave increases the damage dealt by your next Whirlwind by an additional 6% for each target hit. So I'll use Cleave right here, and you can see the buff right there, and then I use Whirlwind. So this is an interesting concept for PvE. This is going to make AoE packs more interesting for an Arms Warrior, but for the most part it's not complicating it too much, but it's definitely more complicated than the basic rotation of an Arms Warrior that we've been seeing right here of just Colossus Smash, Portal Strike, and Slam, Slam, Slam until you get nice procs to come through. Crushing Blows increases the damage dealt by Slam by 15%, 3 ranks, so that'll be 5% per rank. This one down here, by the way, will be 2% per rank, so 2%, 4%, 6% per rank for 1 against many. Here we have Touch of the Zakaj. Stromkar heals you for 9% of the damage you deal with Mortal Strike. So your wonderful artifact weapon will heal you for the damage that you deal with your Mortal Strike. So whenever I deal my Mortal Strike damage, I will get healed out of it, which is pretty nice. 9% of the damage done. That was, what, 287,000 physical damage. 8% or 9% of that is around roughly close to 10%, so I get about 28,000 healing out of it, and I have 1.5 million health, so it's a smidge. Here we have Tactical Advance. When Heroic Leap lands, you gain 30% increased armor and a chance to parry for 4 seconds. That's pretty awesome. 3 ranks. I believe that'll be affected by the how much increased armor you get, so it'll be 10, 20, 30%. Our second epic ability here is going to be Void Cleave. When Cleave strikes at least 3 targets, Stromkar releases a burst of void energy, dealing 16,000 shadow damage to all enemies. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I do not have a place inside Skyhold to actually cleave more than 3 enemies. They have all of their training dummies pretty well spread out, so I can't really show that to you, but that's a pretty awesome ability. It's just more burst. It's more AoE damage coming out of your cleave. So just take note of that. They're really kind of building up this whole Cleave and Whirlwind playing off of each other hype and the damage you can deal off of it. The other epic portrait, the last one here, is the Corrupted Blood of the Zakaj. For 5 seconds after activating a battle cry, Stromkar radiates shadowy energy, causing all of your attacks to deal an additional 20 damage as shadow over 6 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and use that here. We'll use the ability. And then all of our abilities from now on will deal shadow damage for the next 6 seconds. So that's pretty cool. On the bottom here, we have Unending Rage. Increases maximum rage by 30, so you can get all the way up to 130 rage. It kind of adds to the fact that you like almost never seem to run out of rage. Many Will Fall. Increases the damage dealt by Whirlwind by 15%. That'll be 5% per rank. You Focus in Battle. Increases the damage dealt by Colossus Smash by 25%. It's just base damage increases. And then lastly, we have Precise Strikes. Colossus Smash reduces the rage cost of your next Mortal Strike or Execute by 45%. So, as you can tell with the talent tree here, everything kind of revolves around Colossus Smash. That's everything that involves in the arms rotation. And I apologize for missing out on Tactician. That's at the very end, and I must have finished through the list on my live client, and I didn't double back to check on making sure I had gone through everything on the beta client to make sure I had them all written down. So I apologize for that, but do know that the big things for an Arms Warrior are going to be Tactician, your Mastery, Colossus Might, and the changes to Colossus Smash. You're going to be wanting to get those Colossus Smash kind of resets in order to get the extra damage that you can get off of them. And then you'll have to be, you know, making sure that you don't overlap. So I use Colossus Smash. I attempt to, you know, get any type of a reset on it, which probably isn't going to happen. I will say that if you do not get a reset on Colossus Smash, you're gonna feel pretty dry in terms of rage. So it definitely does. You start to feel it if you haven't gotten enough rage built up. You'll start to feel things dry up. So I got a Colossus Smash reset there. I would love to see if I can get one reset here, but I can't. But just know that if you do get a reset before the 8 seconds is up, you're just going to have to make sure that you don't use Colossus Smash too early, or that'll be kind of overlapping and then not be very useful. So, I hope I explained Tactician successfully to you guys, and the new Mastery Colossus Might. Everything around an Arms Warrior revolves around Colossus Might and getting that actual reset on the ability, because it has such a long cooldown, which is kind of, well, it really kind of stinks. I would prefer it to be more based on maybe damage, if they could somehow figure that out, because then maybe you could use Heroic Throw from a distance if you're not in range or so forth, to help out with getting those resets. But if you don't have those resets, you're gonna find some downtime as arms, and that's going to be really irritating. And then there are times in which you've built up so much rage that you just never seem to run out of you never run out of rage. You just always have a ton. So there's a reset right there, and you know, it's just, I don't know. I kind of would like for something like maybe for Overpower and Ren to both be baseline, and for it to be just kind of, you know, give a little bit more interesting rotation to arms right now. But at the moment, this is how it stands. You will see how it functions in the next video. We'll look at the PvE and the PvP talents for an Arms Warrior. But for now, this is everything detailing the removed, changed, and new abilities for an Arms Warrior and their artifact weapon ability and talent tree. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one looking at PvP and PvE talents. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later. Teal us out.